as it is important throughout this whole case. Alex Murdock married a woman named Maggie, and they had 2 sons. The older one goes by Buster, and the younger one was Paul. I'm trying to decide which piece of the story to tell next, and I think we'll go with what happened in February of 2019. Paul, who was the youngest son, was 19. He got a hold of some kind of fake ID or somebody else's ID, and he went and bought a bunch of alcohol. And he and 5 of his friends, they were 3 couples, 3 boy-girl couples, all the same age, pretty much, 19-ish. They all did a bunch of drinking, and then they went out in Paul's family boat. Now, we all know drinking and boating is just as illegal as drinking and driving, and it is just as dangerous, okay? But they did this, and they even stopped at some point and went to a bar and then got back in the boat. Supposedly, I did hear some stories about the other people who got on the boat weren't too keen on this whole thing, weren't too keen on all this excess drinking and whatever, but they all got back on the boat, and Paul was driving, allegedly, and he managed somehow to hit a bridge just around the area of Paris Island. When he hit this bridge, one of the girls, her name was Mallory Beach, she had been sitting on her boyfriend's lap, and the force from the collision caused her to fly off the boat into the water. And I'm assuming they all jumped in to look for her, but I didn't see that written anywhere. But they did not find her, and they called 911. So the authorities showed up. They also could not find Mallory anywhere, and it was, late at night, in the middle of the night, or early morning. So normally, the police would have conducted a field sobriety test in this type of situation on Paul, but they didn't. And normally he would have been handcuffed, but he wasn't. But all the kids went to the hospital, yes, allegedly, he wound up embezzling from this law firm, the family law firm. And it was brought to his attention at work that they knew what was going on. That was September 3rd. So he resigned, rather than being fired. September 3rd, he resigned, like I said. September 4th, this year, 2021. He was out in his car and the tire pressure was low, so he got out to take a look at the tire, and somebody in a truck pulled by and shot him in the head. Okay? But he survived. It was a shot that did cause a fracture of the skull, but didn't seem to cause any other damage, so he was pretty much okay. 2 days after that, on September 6th, he enters drug rehab. 2 days after that, on the 8th, his law license is suspended. Presumably from the embezzlement, I guess. Now here's the doozy, okay? Sit back. September 15th, we find out that this shot that he received to the head, he orchestrated it. You see, he had an old client, Curtis Smith, who was a drug dealer. But Alex had represented him in a couple of cases. And I guess that's how they met, and Curtis became his drug supplier. So he said to Curtis at some point, listen, my life is, I don't know exactly what he said. Okay, this is how I imagine it went down. My life is ruined. I have no money. My family has been killed. I want to kill myself. But if I do that, then Buster, my son, will not get the $10 million payout from my insurance company, because you cannot commit suicide and get the money. But homicide is covered, so we'll make it look like I got shot and killed, and then Buster will get the money. So that is what really happened, okay? But I guess Curtis didn't do a very good job. So he was arrested and charged with assisted suicide, assault and battery, and insurance fraud. Okay, and he's awaiting trial for that mess. The next day, Alex came out of rehab to turn himself in for this exact thing, for having taken, part of this whole scheme. So, he was released on $20,000 bond, and he was given a court date of October 25th. So we'll stay tuned for that. It's upcoming. And he's being charged with just insurance fraud at this point. I imagine there will be more charges, but it's kind of weird, isn't it? Like, he was arranging for his own suicide, fake suicide. But he didn't get charged for that immediately. Like, I don't know. Okay, so meanwhile, with all of what's gone on here, we're still not done. We have plenty more. The case against Paul for Mallory's death is obviously dropped because he's no longer living. Okay, so that's not gonna come to anything. But 2 other cases are being reopened. Okay. We have the 2015 death of a boy named Stephen Smith. He was 19, and he was a classmate of Buster. And he was gay. Now, one night, as I said, in 2015, he was driving, and he ran out of gas. And you could see that because his car was left abandoned with the gas cap open, which I'm thinking is just me. I'm thinking is weird. Like, if you run out of gas, your car tells you you don't open your gas cap and then go look for gas, right? There's no need to open your gas cap until you get back with the gas. So that's fishy to just me. I didn't hear anything about that, but I'm just like, why would he open his gas cap? Unless somebody wanted to make it look like that's what went on or something. I don't know. Maybe someone siphoned out his gas to make it look like he was going to look for gas, but whatever. Okay, it doesn't matter. I'm just making that up. So anyway, he's out walking, and he got to about 3 miles away from the car, where he is found dead. Now, the police looked at it and said it was a gunshot simply wrote on the death certificate, slip and fall. And then they wrote natural causes. And everyone says that slip and fall is not natural causes. But that is what it said. Case closed. Why? What's up with that? But yet, why would anyone try to kill her? What would be the point? Well, interestingly enough, she had 2 adult sons, I believe. She was 57 at the time. And Alex Murdock, he himself told the sons that they should sue him because it happened in his house. Now, I'm assuming, it doesn't say this anywhere, but I'm assuming he meant like his homeowner's insurance would pay it or something. That's just what I'm guessing. But he told them to sue him. And then, unbeknownst to them, he set them up with a lawyer who was connected to him. And they won a settlement of like 500 and something thousand. But they never got a penny of it. Where is the money? What happened there? Now, once again, this is just me. Okay, maybe I shouldn't be trying to solve these crimes, okay? But I am thinking maybe since he is into insurance fraud and he didn't want to kill anyone that he really cared about, he decided, let's kill my housekeeper and, you know, have the kids sue me, and then we can use my connected lawyer, and then they could just give me all the money, and we'll just keep telling them we don't know where the money is, you know. Like I'm saying, I got no evidence of this, I'm just guessing. So anyway, now that's being looked into again, and believe it or not, these sons have stated that since this case is being reopened, they are actually frightened. They are frightened of going against the Murdock family because they said people who go against the family tend to wind up with bad luck. So, I think that is all. I think I covered everything. But I'm sure when I'm done, I'll remember 20 other things that I forgot to mention, but I really hope not. Anyway, please tell me what you think is going on here. All these different pieces, are they all completely unrelated? Who killed Paul and his mother, Maggie, and why? Who killed Stephen Smith and why? Why was Gloria killed? And why didn't she get an autopsy? How do things like this go on? I don't know. I'm just so, like, confused right now. But anyway, as I said when I started, my heart goes out to all these people, so many people really, who are stuck in this and frustrated and just getting no closure.